There are moments in life that split everything into before and after. Moments so devastating, so violating, that they carve a canyon right through the center of your existence. For one 31-year-old man in suburban Dallas, Texas, that moment happened on a Thursday night in May, just 8 days before what should have been the happiest day of his life. He came home early from a work dinner. He walked into his own apartment. He opened the door to his own bedroom, and what he found there would haunt him every single day for the next year, and change the course of his life forever. This is that story. It started with a sound, a whisper, actually, soft and urgent, slipping through the crack beneath the bedroom door of his 2-bedroom apartment on the second floor of a modern complex near downtown Dallas. He'd been living there for 3 years, first alone, then with her, his fiancée, the woman he'd proposed to on a beach in Galveston 18 months earlier, the woman whose smile made his parents light up at Sunday dinners, the woman who was supposed to walk down the aisle toward him in just over a week. He stood in the hallway with his keys still in his hand, his work bag slung over his shoulder, his tie loosened after a long corporate dinner that had ended earlier than expected. The apartment was dim. Only the glow from the streetlights outside filtered through the living room blinds. He'd texted her an hour ago to say he'd be late. She'd replied with a heart emoji and told him she was going to bed early. But the lights were off, and there were voices. His stomach tightened. Not with suspicion, not yet, but with that primal, wordless instinct that something was wrong. He took a step forward. The floorboard creaked under his weight. The voices stopped. Then he heard it again. A man's voice, low, familiar. He didn't knock. He didn't announce himself. He just turned the handle and pushed the door open. And there, in the bed he'd assembled with his own hands from an IKEA box on a Saturday morning 2 years ago, under the sheets he'd bought on sale at Target, in the room he paid for with his salary from a job that stressed him out more than he ever admitted, there was his younger brother, naked, next to his fiancée. The room froze. His fiancée gasped and pulled the comforter up to her neck, her eyes wide and wet with instant tears. His brother, 27 years old, lean and cocky, with that same jawline their father had, sat up slowly, his face caught somewhere between shock and defiance, like a teenager caught sneaking out, not a grown man caught in bed with his brother's fiancée. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was as if the universe itself had paused to let the full weight of the betrayal settle into his bones. Then his fiancée broke the silence. "It's not what it looks like." Those 6 words, the most insulting, empty, cowardly words anyone has ever invented. It's not what it looks like. As if his eyes were lying to him. As if the scene in front of him required explanation or context or some kind of charitable interpretation. He felt his hands start to shake. Not with sadness. Not yet. With rage. "Get out," he said. His voice was quiet. Dangerously quiet. His brother swung his legs over the side of the bed and reached for his jeans crumpled on the floor. He didn't look at him. Didn't apologize, just moved with the same casual arrogance he'd always had, the same golden child entitlement that had followed him his entire life. "Dude, just let me explain. Get out." His fiancée was crying now, her mascara streaking down her cheeks, her hands trembling as she clutched the blanket. "Please, babe, please, just listen." But he couldn't. He physically couldn't. His chest was tight, his vision narrowing, his breath coming in short, shallow bursts. He turned and walked out of the bedroom, through the hallway, past the kitchen where they'd shared coffee that very morning, past the couch where they'd watched Netflix just 2 nights ago, and out the front door into the cool Texas night. Behind him, he heard his brother calling his name. He heard his fiancée sobbing. He heard the neighbors' doors creak open, curious and cautious. He didn't look back. He got into his car, a used Honda Accord he'd been driving since college, and sat there in the parking lot with the engine running, staring at the dashboard, trying to process what had just happened, trying to make sense of it, trying to find some version of reality where this wasn't real. But it was real. His brother, his younger brother, the kid he used to play catch with in the backyard, the kid he drove to basketball practice, the kid he defended when their parents were too hard on him. That brother, in his bed, with his fiancée, a week before their wedding. He didn't cry, not yet. He just sat there, numb, as the world he thought he knew crumbled into dust around him. And that's where the worst year of his life began. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just destroy the moment it happens. It reaches backward and poisons everything that came before it. Every memory, every smile, every I love you, all of it gets rewritten. All of it becomes a lie. To understand how deep this cut, you have to understand what life looked like before that Thursday night. You have to see the world he thought he was living in, the family he thought he had, the future he thought was waiting for him. Because on paper, everything was perfect. He grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in the suburbs of Dallas, in a 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage and a backyard big enough for a trampoline and a barbecue grill. His dad worked in insurance. His mom was a part-time bookkeeper and full-time homemaker. They weren't rich, but they were comfortable. They went to church on Sundays, sometimes. They hosted Thanksgiving every year. They had a golden retriever named Biscuit who died when he was 16 and left a hole in the family that never quite got filled. And they had 2 sons. Him, the older one, responsible, steady. The kid who got decent grades, stayed out of trouble, went to a state university on a partial scholarship, and landed a corporate job in project management right after graduation. The kid who called his mom every Sunday. The kid who showed up early to family dinners and helped set the table without being asked. And then there was his brother, younger by 4 years, charming, handsome, the kind of kid who could talk his way out of anything. He played varsity football in high school, dated the prettiest girls, and coasted through college on charisma and last-minute cramming. He bounced between jobs, sales gigs, bartending, a brief stint trying to start a fitness Instagram that went nowhere. But none of that mattered to their parents. Because he was funny, he was magnetic. He lit up every room he walked into. He was the golden child. And here's the thing about golden children. They learn early that the rules don't really apply to them. They learn that charm can smooth over mistakes, that apologies don't need to be sincere, just well-timed, that someone else will always clean up the mess. For years, he didn't resent it. He just accepted it. That's how families work, right? Somebody's the dependable one. Somebody's the fun one. Everybody plays their role. But beneath the surface, there was pressure. Quiet, constant pressure. While his brother drifted between careers, he was grinding 45, 50 hours a week at a corporate office in downtown Dallas, managing timelines and budgets and difficult clients, sitting in back-to-back meetings that drained the life out of him. He made decent money. Not great, but decent. And he saved it. He saved it because he had a plan. He was going to propose. He was going to get married. He was going to build a life. And then he met her. She was 28, blonde, bright smile, worked in marketing for a local events company. They met at a mutual friend's birthday party at a rooftop bar in uptown Dallas on a warm June night. She laughed at his jokes. She asked him questions about his work and actually seemed interested in the answers. She didn't play games. She texted back. She made plans. She felt easy, in the best way. Within 6 months, they were dating seriously. Within a year, she'd moved into his apartment. And after 18 months, on a weekend trip to the Texas coast, he got down on one knee in the sand at sunset and asked her to marry him. She said yes. His parents loved her. Loved her. His mom started calling her sweetie within weeks of meeting her. His dad joked that she was too good for him. She came to Sunday dinners. She helped his mom in the kitchen. She brought wine and homemade cookies. She knew how to navigate his family in a way that felt effortless. And his brother? His brother loved her too. Maybe a little too much. But at the time, it just seemed like everyone got along. It seemed like everything was falling into place. The wedding was set for late May at a boutique venue just outside Dallas, a converted barn with string lights and wildflowers and a view of rolling Texas hills. It wasn't huge, about 120 guests. Modest, but beautiful. The kind of wedding that felt personal and warm, not flashy. It was also expensive. Not by celebrity standards, obviously, but for a guy making a project manager's salary, $25,000 was a lot. His parents kicked in $5,000. Her parents, who lived out of state and weren't well off, contributed $3,000. The rest? That was on him. He didn't complain. He wanted her to have the day she dreamed of. He wanted everything to be perfect. So he worked overtime. He skipped vacations. He brown-bagged his lunch and stopped going out with coworkers for happy hour. He was careful. He was disciplined. And all the while, his younger brother was crashing on couches, asking their parents for rent money, and showing up to family dinners with stories about his latest business idea that never went anywhere. But nobody pressured him. Nobody questioned him. Nobody said, "When are you going to grow up?" Because he was the golden child. And golden children get grace. Meanwhile, the dependable son kept working, kept saving, kept building, and his fiancée kept planning. She spent hours on Pinterest, creating boards for centerpieces and bouquets and seating charts. She dragged him to tastings and venue tours and meetings with photographers. She had opinions about everything: napkin colors, font choices, the angle of the sunset for photos. He didn't mind. He loved seeing her excited. He loved imagining their future. On the surface, everything looked perfect. But if you looked closely, really closely, there were cracks. Small ones at first, easy to miss, easy to explain away. It started about 4 months before the wedding. She began going out more. Girls' nights, drinks with coworkers, weekend trips to Austin with her friends. He didn't think much of it. She was stressed with wedding planning and work. She deserved to blow off steam. He trusted her. But the late nights became later. The texts became shorter. And when he asked about her plans, she got vague. Just hanging out. You wouldn't know them. It's not a big deal. And then there was his brother. Around the same time, his brother started showing up more. At their apartment, at Sunday dinners, at random times during the week when he just happened to be in the area. He'd knock on the door, grinning, holding a 6-pack of beer or a pizza, acting like he was just being a good brother, like he was just checking in. And she always welcomed him, always laughed at his jokes, always seemed a little too comfortable around him. One night, about 6 weeks before the wedding, he came home from work and found them sitting on the couch together, watching a movie. Nothing overtly wrong. They weren't touching, they weren't whispering, but something about the scene felt off. "Hey man," his brother said too loudly. "Just keeping her company while you were stuck at the office." She smiled and patted the couch. "Come sit with us." He did. But the rest of the night, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd interrupted something. He mentioned it to her later, carefully, trying not to sound accusatory. "Do you think my brother's been coming around a lot lately?" She shrugged. "I mean, he's your brother. He's family." I know, I don't know. It feels like he's here all the time. She laughed, a little too quickly. You're overthinking it. He's just being supportive. He's excited for the wedding. He let it go. Because what was the alternative? Accuse his fiancée of something based on a vibe? Start a fight over nothing? So he buried it. But the unease stayed. At family dinners, the dynamic started to shift too. His parents had always favored his brother, subtly, quietly, in ways that were easy to dismiss if you didn't want to see them. But as the wedding approached, it became more obvious. His mom would ask his brother about his week, laugh at his stories, fuss over whether he was eating enough. Then she'd turn to him and ask, "How's work?" in the same flat tone you'd use to ask about the weather. His dad was worse. Every time he brought up the wedding, his dad found a way to steer the conversation back to his brother. "So the venue's all set?" his dad asked one Sunday over brisket. "Yeah, everything's locked in. Just waiting on the final head count." His dad nodded absently, then turned to his brother. "You still thinking about that real estate thing?" His brother shrugged. "Maybe. Still exploring options." His dad grinned. "That's smart. Keep your options open. Don't rush into anything." Meanwhile, he was about to get married, about to commit to a mortgage-sized wedding, about to start a family. And his dad's advice to him? Make sure you're ready for this. Marriage is a big responsibility. No encouragement, no excitement, just a reminder that responsibility was his job. And when he tried to talk to his mom about it, gently, over coffee one afternoon, she waved him off. "You're too sensitive. Your father's just trying to help. He doesn't talk to like that," she sighed. "Your brother's different. He needs more support." "Why? Because he can't hold down a job?" "Don't be cruel." That was the pattern. Every time he pushed back, every time he pointed out the double standard, he was the problem. He was too sensitive, too harsh, too jealous. And maybe he started to believe it. Maybe he was overthinking things. Maybe his brother really was just being supportive. Maybe his fiancée really was just stressed and needed space. Maybe his parents really did love him, just in a quieter way. Or maybe, deep down, he knew something was wrong, but he didn't want to see it. Because seeing it meant acknowledging that the life he was building, the wedding, the family, the future, was standing on a foundation that was already crumbling. And then came the Thursday night in May that changed everything. He'd been invited to a client dinner downtown, one of those obligatory corporate networking things where you smile too much and drink overpriced wine and pretend to care about someone's golf game. He'd told his fiancée he'd be out late, probably not home until 10 or 11, but the dinner wrapped up early. The client had an early flight. By 8:30, he was back in his car, loosening his tie, relieved to have the night back. He texted her on the way home. "Heading back early. Want me to grab anything?" She didn't reply. No big deal. She was probably in the shower. Or asleep. She'd said she was exhausted. He pulled into the apartment complex parking lot at 8:47 p.m. He remembered the time because he glanced at the dashboard clock and thought about whether he had time to catch the end of the basketball game on TV. He walked up the stairs to the second floor, keys jingling in his hand, his mind already shifting to the weekend. They had a cake tasting on Saturday. His mom wanted them over for dinner on Sunday. Normal stuff. Wedding stuff. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was dark, quiet, but not empty. There was a sound, faint, coming from the bedroom. He paused in the entryway, his hand still on the doorknob, his brain struggling to process what he was hearing. A whisper, a man's voice, and then movement. He walked toward the bedroom, each step heavy and slow, his heart starting to pound in his chest. He reached the door. It was closed, but not locked. A thin line of light leaked out from underneath. He put his hand on the handle and opened it. The scene that greeted him would replay in his mind every single day for the next year. Every time he closed his eyes. Every time he tried to sleep. Every time he heard a door creak, or saw a bedroom, or smelled the lavender detergent she used on the sheets. His brother was sitting up in the bed, shirtless, frozen mid-movement. His fiancée was next to him, the comforter pulled up to her collarbone, her hair messy, her face pale. For a split second, nobody moved. And then the excuses started. It's not what it looks like. But it was. It was exactly what it looked like. His brother grabbed his jeans from the floor and started pulling them on, his face flushed, his movements frantic. Dude, just hold on, let me explain. Explain what? His voice was shaking now. Not with sadness, with fury. Explain why you're in my bed? In my apartment? With my fiancé? His fiancée was sobbing, her hands covering her face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. As if that made it better. As if betrayal was less painful when it was casual, when it was careless, when it was just a meaningless mistake. His brother finally got his jeans on and stood up, his hands raised like he was trying to calm down a wild animal. Look, man, I know this looks bad. Get out. Just listen. Get out. His brother hesitated, glancing at his fiancée, then back at him. And in that glance, in that split-second moment of silent communication between the two of them, he realized something that made his stomach turn. This wasn't the first time. This wasn't some drunken mistake, some moment of weakness. This had been going on. How long? He asked quietly. His fiancée's sobs got louder. How long? He repeated, his voice rising. His brother wouldn't look at him, just dragged his shirt off the floor and muttered, Man, this isn't the time. How long? Silence. And in that silence, he had his answer. His brother finally brushed past him and walked out of the bedroom. He heard the front door open and close, heard his brother's footsteps on the stairs outside, heard a car start and drive away. And then it was just him and her. She was still crying, still clutching the comforter, her mascara running in black streaks down her face. Please, she whispered, please let me explain. But he didn't want to hear it. He didn't want her excuses or her apologies or her tears. He just wanted her gone. Get dressed, he said, and get out. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Please, just talk to me. Just let me get out. She stared at him, her face crumpling, and for a moment he almost felt bad. Almost. But then he remembered the way she'd looked at his brother when he walked in. The way they'd both frozen, guilty and caught. He turned and walked out of the bedroom. By the time she finally left, dressed, makeup smeared, sobbing into her phone as she called a friend to pick her up, it was almost midnight. And he was alone. Alone in the apartment they'd shared. Alone in the bed they'd slept in. Alone with the wreckage of a life that no longer existed. He didn't cry that night. He didn't call anyone. He didn't post anything on social media or send angry texts or smash anything in a fit of rage. He just sat on the couch, in the dark, staring at the wall, trying to understand how the people he loved most in the world could do this to him. And that was the night that broke him. But the worst part? The night was just the beginning. Because when the sun came up the next morning, he had to start dealing with the aftermath.
the wedding that was 8 days away, the deposits that were non-refundable, the family that was about to implode, the friends who would want answers, the coworkers who would ask how the planning was going. And worst of all, his parents. He called them the next morning, Friday. His hands were shaking as he dialed. His mom picked up on the third ring. "Hey, sweetie, how are you? Are you getting excited? 1 week to go." He couldn't speak for a moment. His throat was tight. "Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad." Her tone shifted. "What's wrong? Can I come over?" "Of course. Are you okay?" He wasn't, but he said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. When he walked into his parents' house, into the same living room where he'd spent every Christmas morning of his childhood, where he'd watched football with his dad, where his mom had kissed his scraped knees and made him feel safe, he didn't feel safe anymore. His parents sat on the couch, worry etched into their faces. "What's going on?" his dad asked. He told them everything. The dinner that ended early, the bedroom, his brother, his fiancée, the betrayal. His mom gasped and covered her mouth. His dad's face went pale. For a moment, there was silence, and then his mom spoke.
"Are you sure?" Those 3 words hit him like a slap. "Am I sure?" he repeated slowly. "I just mean, maybe there's been a misunderstanding. Maybe it's not what you think. I walked in on them, Mom. In my bed. There's no misunderstanding." His dad cleared his throat. "Have you talked to your brother?" "No. I told him to leave." "Well, maybe you should. Maybe there's more to the story." He stared at his father in disbelief. "More to the story? Dad, he slept with my fiancée." "We don't know that for sure." "I saw them." His mom reached out and touched his arm. "Honey, I know you're upset, but your brother, he wouldn't do that. Not on purpose. Maybe she came on to him. Maybe he didn't know how to say no." And there it was. The golden child defense. The instinct to protect, to excuse, to rewrite reality so that their favorite son stayed untarnished. He pulled his arm away. "You're seriously blaming her right now?" "I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying we need to hear his side." "His side?" "His side is that he betrayed me." His dad stood up, his face hard. "You need to calm down. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm not thinking clearly? Are you kidding me?" "Don't raise your voice at your mother." "I'm not." He stopped, took a breath. "I came here because I needed you. I considered my parents. And you're defending him?" His mom's eyes filled with tears. "We're not defending anyone. We're just trying to understand." "There's nothing to understand. He slept with my fiancée. The wedding is off. That's it." His dad crossed his arms. "You're going to cancel the wedding over this?" "Yes." "Do you have any idea how much money we've put into this? How much planning? How many people are coming?" He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're worried about money?" "I'm worried about you making a decision you'll regret. The only thing I regret is not seeing this coming." His mom stood up and tried to hug him, but he stepped back. "Sweetie, please. Let's just take a few days. Let's all sit down together and talk this through." "I'm not sitting down with him." "He's your brother." "Not anymore." And with that, he walked out. He spent the rest of the day canceling everything. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, the florist, the DJ. Every single vendor. Some were understanding, some were not. Most of the deposits were non-refundable. He lost over $10,000 in a single afternoon. He sent a group text to the wedding party. Short, simple.
The wedding is off. I'll explain later. The responses came flooding in. Confusion, concern, questions. He didn't answer any of them. He sent an email to the guest list with the same message. And then he blocked his brother's number, blocked his ex-fiancée, blocked anyone who might try to talk him out of what he knew was the right decision. That weekend was a blur. He barely slept, barely ate. He moved through his apartment like a ghost, packing up her things, putting them in boxes by the door, texting her to come get them. She tried to call, tried to text, tried to explain. He didn't respond. His brother tried too, left voicemails, sent messages. Dude, please, just let me talk to you. I know I messed up. I'm sorry. Can we just meet up? Just for 5 minutes. He deleted every single one. And his parents? They called twice. Once to ask if he'd calmed down. Once to tell him his brother was really struggling and maybe he should think about forgiveness. He stopped answering their calls too. By Monday, the story had spread. Through family, through mutual friends, through the grapevine of a small, interconnected community where everyone knew everyone. And already, the narrative was shifting. His brother's version of events was different, convenient, easier to swallow. According to him, she was the one who initiated it. She was the one who came on to him.
He tried to stop it, but one thing led to another. According to him, his older brother was overreacting. It was just a mistake. It didn't mean anything. And some people believed it, because that's how golden children work. They rewrite history. They shift blame. They make themselves the victim. And the dependable older brother? He became the villain. The guy who couldn't forgive, who held grudges, who tore the family apart over one mistake. But here's the truth. It wasn't one mistake. It was a betrayal. A calculated, selfish, devastating betrayal by the two people who were supposed to love him most. And he didn't owe anyone forgiveness. So he did something most people never have the courage to do. He walked away. From his brother, from his ex-fiancée, from his parents when they refused to take his side, from the life he thought he was building, and he started over. A year is a long time when you're healing from betrayal, long enough to question everything you thought you knew about yourself, long enough to wonder if you'll ever trust anyone again, long enough to rebuild from the ground up, or stay buried in the wreckage. For him, that year was both. He moved out of the apartment 3 months after the breakup. Couldn't stand being there anymore. Every corner held a memory. The couch where they'd planned their future. The kitchen where she'd made him coffee every morning. The bedroom where it all fell apart. He found a modest one-bedroom place on the other side of town. Smaller. Quieter. Just him and a futon and a TV he'd bought on sale. It wasn't much, but it was his. And for the first time in months, he could breathe. The first few months were the hardest. He threw himself into work, taking on extra projects, staying late, volunteering for assignments no one else wanted. It was easier to be busy than to sit with the pain. Easier to focus on spreadsheets and deadlines than to think about what he'd lost. But the pain had a way of finding him anyway. Late at night, when the apartment was quiet and the distractions ran out, it would hit him. The replays, the what-ifs, the image of them in his bed burned into his memory like a scar. He started therapy in August. His coworker mentioned her therapist casually over lunch one day, and something about the way she said it, without shame, without judgment, made him think maybe he should try it too. His therapist was a woman in her 50s named Dr. Carol. She had a calm voice and a way of asking questions that made him feel like she actually cared about the answers. "What's the hardest part?" she asked in one of their early sessions. He thought about it. That they didn't just betray me. They stole my ability to trust anyone. Do you think you'll ever trust again? I don't know. Some days I think I will. Other days I think I'm broken. You're not broken, she said gently. You're hurt, and there's a difference. Twice a month, he sat in that office and unpacked the wreckage, the golden child dynamic, the enmeshment with his family, the quiet ways he'd been taught that his feelings didn't matter as much as keeping the peace. And slowly, piece by piece, he started to see the bigger picture. This wasn't just about one betrayal. It was about a lifetime of being second, of being the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who didn't need as much attention or grace, the one who could handle it. But he couldn't handle it. Not anymore. So he set boundaries. He went no contact with his brother, completely. Blocked on everything, no exceptions. He went low contact with his parents, stopped going to Sunday dinners, stopped answering every call, responded to texts when he felt like it, not when they demanded it. And his ex-fiancée? She tried to reach out a few times in the beginning. Apology texts, letters, even a voicemail where she cried and said she'd do anything to make it right. He didn't respond. Because there was nothing she could do. Some things can't be fixed. By the fall, he'd started working out. Not obsessively, just something to do with the anger and the restlessness. He joined a gym near his apartment and went 3-4 times a week. Nothing fancy, lifting weights, running on the treadmill, letting the sweat wash away the noise in his head. And slowly, he started to feel like himself again. Not the same self. That version of him was gone, but a new self. Harder, wiser, less willing to shrink for other people's comfort. The holidays were rough. Thanksgiving came and his mom called to invite him over. He could hear the expectation in her voice, the assumption that enough time had passed, that he'd come back, that things would go back to normal. I'm not coming, he said. What? Why not? Because I don't want to sit at a table with him. Honey, it's been 6 months. Don't you think it's time to move past this? No. He's your brother. He stopped being my brother when he slept with my fiancée. She sighed. That familiar, disappointed sigh that used to make him feel guilty. But this time, it just made him tired. You're tearing this family apart, she said. I'm not the one who did that. He spent Thanksgiving with a coworker and his family. It was awkward at first, being the random single guy at someone else's family dinner, but they were kind. They didn't ask questions. They didn't push. And for the first time in months, he felt okay. Christmas was worse. His parents tried again. His mom sent him a long text about family and forgiveness and how his father was disappointed in him. He didn't respond. Instead, he spent Christmas Eve at a friend's house, watching movies and drinking whiskey, and Christmas Day alone in his apartment, which should have been depressing but somehow wasn't. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't bending, wasn't people-pleasing, wasn't sacrificing his peace for someone else's comfort. He was choosing himself. And that felt like progress. But the hardest part of that year wasn't the loneliness. It wasn't the holidays or the therapy or the memories. It was the narrative. Because while he was healing in private, his brother was rewriting history in public. He heard it through mutual friends, through cousins, through people who still talked to both sides of the family and couldn't help but pass along the gossip. According to his brother, he was the victim, the scapegoat, the one being unfairly punished for one mistake. According to his brother, his older brother was bitter, jealous, unable to forgive. According to his brother, the family was being torn apart because someone couldn't let go of the past. And the worst part? Some people believed it. Because that's how golden children work. They spin. They deflect. they make themselves the hero of every story. And the responsible older brother? He became the villain. But he didn't defend himself, didn't argue, didn't try to set the record straight. He just kept moving forward. And then, in February, something unexpected happened. A coworker invited him to a happy hour on a Friday night. He almost said no. He'd been saying no to social events for months. But something made him say yes. The bar was crowded and loud, filled with people from his office and their friends. He nursed a beer in the corner, half listening to conversations, wondering when he could politely leave. And then she walked in. She was a friend of his coworker, 30 years old, dark hair, warm smile. She worked in graphic design for a nonprofit and had a laugh that somehow cut through the noise of the bar. They ended up talking for 2 hours. She didn't ask about his past right away, didn't pry, just talked about normal things. Work, Dallas, the best tacos in town, TV shows they were both watching. It felt easy. When the night ended, she gave him her number. Text me if you want to grab coffee sometime. He did. They went to coffee the following week, then dinner the week after that, then a movie, then a hike at a state park just outside the city. And somewhere in those slow, careful weeks of getting to know each other, he told her the story. All of it. The betrayal, the brother, the family, the year of rebuilding. She listened, didn't interrupt, didn't offer empty platitudes or try to fix him. When he finished, she reached across the table and touched his hand. That's a lot, she said quietly. Yeah. Are you okay? He thought about it. I'm getting there. She smiled. Good. You deserve to be. And for the first time in over a year, he believed it. They took it slow. He wasn't ready to rush into anything, and she didn't push. She understood. She had her own scars, her own history. But over the months, something grew between them. Something real. Something built on honesty and trust, and the kind of quiet, steady love that doesn't demand perfection. By the summer, they were serious. By the fall, they were talking about the future. And in December, almost exactly a year and a half after the worst night of his life, he asked her to marry him. She said yes. The second time around, everything was different. He didn't want a big wedding, didn't want the stress or the expense or the performance of it all. He wanted something small, intimate, real. So they planned a backyard ceremony at a rented venue just outside Dallas. String lights, wired flowers, about 60 guests, close friends, co-workers, a few family members on her side. And on his side, almost no one. He invited a couple of cousins he was still close with, an uncle who'd reached out after the breakup to check on him, a childhood friend who'd never taken sides, but not his parents, and definitely not his brother, until his parents found out. It was March, 3 months before the wedding, when his mom called. I heard you were getting married. I am. And you weren't going to tell us? I didn't think you'd care. Of course we care. You're our son. He didn't respond. When is it? She asked. June. And are we invited? He hesitated. Do you want to be? Of course we do. We're your parents. Even though I haven't spoken to you in over a year? We have given you space. We thought that's what you needed. What I needed was for you to take my side. There was a long pause. We're not taking sides, his mom said carefully. We love both of you. You can't love both of us and pretend what he did was okay. We're not pretending anything. We just think enough time has passed. Maybe it's time to heal. I am healing without him. Another pause. Then quieter. He misses you, you know. Good. Please, just think about it. He's your brother. He made a mistake. Don't you think he suffered enough? And there it was again. The same script. The same refusal to hold the golden child accountable. He took a deep breath. If you want to come to my wedding, you're welcome. But he's not invited. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. What are we supposed to tell him? Tell him the truth, that actions have consequences. His mom's voice turned cold. If you don't invite your brother, this family will never be the same. It's already not the same, Mom. He made sure of that. She hung up. For a few weeks, there was silence. No calls, no texts. He thought maybe that was the end of it. Maybe they'd chosen their side, and he could move forward without them. But then, one evening in late April, his parents showed up at his apartment unannounced. He opened the door to find them standing in the hallway, his mom holding a casserole dish, his dad looking uncomfortable. We need to talk, his mom said. He let them in. They sat in his small living room, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. We've been thinking, his mom started, setting the casserole on the coffee table like a peace offering. And we want to come to your wedding. We want to be there for you. Okay, he said cautiously. But, his dad added, we also think it would mean a lot, to all of us, if you invited your brother. And there it was. No, he said immediately. Just hear us out, his mom pleaded. He's changed. He's been in therapy. He's really working on himself. And he feels terrible about what happened. He should feel terrible. He does. And he wants to make amends. But he can't do that if you won't give him a chance. I'm not giving him a chance. His dad leaned forward, his voice firm. You're being stubborn. I'm being smart. You're holding a grudge. I'm setting a boundary. It's been almost 2 years, his mom said, her eyes welling up. How long are you going to punish him? I'm not punishing him. I'm protecting myself. From what? He's your brother. He loves you. No, he doesn't. If he loved me, he wouldn't have done what he did. His dad stood up, frustrated. You know what? Fine. If you want to be bitter and angry for the rest of your life, that's your choice. But don't expect us to support it. I don't expect anything from you, he said quietly. I stopped expecting things from you a long time ago. His mom started crying. Please, just invite him. Just let him come. You don't have to talk to him. You don't have to forgive him. Just let him be there. For us. And there it was, the real ask. Not for him, for them. So they could keep pretending their family was whole. So they could avoid the discomfort of choosing sides. So they could protect the golden child one more time. He looked at his mom, tears streaming down her face, and felt something inside him shift. Not softness, not forgiveness, just exhaustion. Fine, he said. His mom's face lit up. Really? He can come, but if he tries to talk to me, if he tries to make it about him, I will ask him to leave. Do you understand? Yes, Yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you so much. They left shortly after, his mom hugging him too tightly, his dad clapping him on the shoulder like they'd just brokered a peace treaty. But he wasn't at peace. Because as he closed the door behind them and stood alone in his apartment, he realized something. He didn't invite his brother because he forgave him. He invited him because he had a plan. The wedding day arrived on a perfect June afternoon. The sky was clear and blue, the temperature just warm enough without being stifling. The venue, a converted barn with a wraparound porch and a view of rolling Texas hills, looked like something out of a magazine. String lights crisscrossed the ceiling. Wildflowers in mason jars lined the tables. A simple wooden arch stood at the front of the lawn, draped in soft white fabric. It was exactly what they wanted. Small, personal, beautiful. Guests started arriving around 4. Friends from work, her family, a handful of his cousins. People who loved them and wanted to celebrate with them. And then, just after 4:30, his parents arrived. His mom wore a lavender dress and a nervous smile. His dad wore a suit and a stiff nod. They greeted him briefly, politely, like distant relatives at a reunion. And behind them, in a charcoal gray suit and a smug, carefully constructed expression of humility, was his brother. He looked good, confident, like he'd rehearsed this moment in a mirror. He walked up to him with his hand extended, his voice low and measured. "Hey man, thanks for letting me come." He stared at his brother's outstretched hand for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without a word. The ceremony was beautiful. His bride looked radiant in a simple ivory dress, her smile bright and real as she walked down the aisle toward him. They exchanged vows under the arch, surrounded by people who actually cared about them. And when he kissed her, the crowd erupted in applause. For a moment, everything felt right. But he wasn't done. The reception started with dinner: barbecue brisket and smoked chicken, coleslaw and cornbread, sweet tea and beer. People ate and laughed and toasted the newlyweds. And then, after the first round of speeches, after her maid of honor gave a tearful toast about finding love after heartbreak, after his best man joked about his terrible golf swing, he stood up. The crowd quieted. His bride looked at him, surprised but trusting. He picked up the microphone. "I just want to say thank you," he started, his voice steady. "Thank you all for being here, for supporting us, for celebrating with us. This day means more to me than you know." People smiled, nodded, raised their glasses. He paused, took a breath. "Before I start my new life with my wife, I need to close an old chapter." The room went still. His bride reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. She knew. Not the details, but she knew he needed this. He turned toward the table where his parents and brother were sitting. 2 years ago, he said, his voice calm and clear, I was planning a different wedding, to a different woman. And 8 days before that wedding, I came home early from work and found my younger brother in bed with my fiancée, in my apartment, in my bed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People turned to look at his brother, whose face had gone pale. His mother stood up halfway, her hand reaching out. "Don't." "Sit down, Mom." She froze, then slowly sat back down, her face crumpling. He continued. "After it happened, I canceled the wedding. I lost thousands of dollars. I lost a relationship. I lost a future I thought I was building. But worse than that, I lost my family. Because instead of supporting me, instead of holding him accountable, my parents defended him. They made excuses. They told me I was overreacting. They told me to forgive and forget. And for the last 2 years, they've been telling people that I'm the one tearing this family apart, that I'm bitter, that I'm holding a grudge. His dad stood up now, his face red. "This is not the time or place." "Yes, it is," he said firmly. "Because you made me invite him. You begged me to let him come so we could heal as a family. But here's the thing. Healing doesn't happen when the person who hurt you never takes responsibility. Healing doesn't happen when everyone pretends it didn't happen. Healing doesn't happen when the victim is told to get over it so the perpetrator can feel better." He looked directly at his brother now. "You destroyed my life. And you never apologized. Not really. You never took accountability. You just waited for everyone to forget. And when they didn't, you rewrote the story. You made yourself the victim. You made me the villain. And our parents let you." His brother's jaw clenched. He stood up, his hands shaking. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this." "No, you don't," he said. "You can leave, just like I had to leave my own life when you destroyed it." For a moment, his brother just stood there, his face a mix of rage and humiliation. Then he turned and stormed out. His mother was sobbing now, her face in her hands. His father stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. The rest of the crowd sat in stunned silence. He set the microphone down gently and turned back to his bride. She was crying, but she was smiling too. "I'm okay," he whispered to her. "I'm finally okay." And for the first time in 2 years, he meant it. The rest of the wedding reception passed in a surreal blur. Some guests quietly left. Others came up to him afterward, shaking his hand, hugging him, telling him they were proud of him. A few said they'd suspected something, but never knew the full story. His parents left without saying goodbye. His brother's exit had been loud and angry, a scene in itself, but his parents' departure was quiet. They simply slipped out the back, his mother still crying, his father's face hard and unreadable. He watched them go and felt nothing. No regret, no guilt, just relief. His bride squeezed his hand. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said. And he was. The wedding ended with dancing under the string lights, his wife in his arms, surrounded by people who loved them for who they were, not who they were supposed to be. And as they swayed to a slow song, the Texas night warm and alive around them, he realized something. He'd spent so much of his life trying to be enough, trying to be the good son, the responsible brother, the dependable partner. But he'd never been the problem. And now, finally, he was free. The fallout from the wedding came fast. By the next morning, his phone was flooded. Texts from relatives he hadn't heard from in years, voicemails from his parents, messages from his brother's friends, calling him cruel, heartless, vindictive. But he didn't respond to any of them. His brother, predictably, went into damage control mode. Within 48 hours, he was calling family members, telling his side of the story, spinning the wedding speech as a public humiliation and an unhinged attack. According to him, the original betrayal had been overblown, a drunken mistake that his brother refused to let go of. According to him, the wedding speech was proof that his older brother was unstable and unable to move on. According to him, he was the victim. Again. And some people believed him. Because that's what happens when you've spent a lifetime being the golden child. People want to believe you. They want the version of you that's easier to swallow. But not everyone bought it. Because this time, there was a room full of witnesses. People who had heard the full story. People who had seen his brother's face when the truth came out. People who had watched him storm out instead of staying and taking responsibility. And slowly, quietly, the narrative started to shift. A cousin reached out, then a family friend, then his mom's sister, who sent him a text that simply said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I believe you." It wasn't everyone, but it was enough. Still, his brother wasn't done. About a month after the wedding, he started a group chat with extended family. In it, he laid out his version of events. He painted himself as a man who had made one mistake years ago and had been punished beyond reason. He talked about the therapy he'd been in, the growth he'd done, the amends he'd tried to make. He made it sound like he was the one trying to heal the family, like he was the bigger person. And he ended the message with a plea: "I just want my brother back." It was manipulative, it was calculated, and it was effective. Several family members responded with support, with sympathy, with messages like, "We forgive you," and "Family is family." But he didn't see any of it, because he wasn't in the group chat. A cousin forwarded it to him with a simple message: "Thought you should know what he's saying." He read it once, then deleted it, because he was done. But his wife wasn't. "We should respond," she said one night as they sat on the couch in their new apartment, a 2-bedroom place they'd moved into after the wedding, a space that felt like theirs, untouched by the past. "There's no point," he said. "People are going to believe what they want to believe. But it's not true. He's lying. I know. So we should set the record straight." He thought about it. For a long time, he'd believed the same thing, that the truth mattered, that if he just explained it clearly enough, people would understand. But the truth was, some people didn't want to understand. They wanted the easier story, the one where everyone got along, the one where he was just being stubborn. "I don't want to fight anymore," he said. "I just want to move on." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face. Then she nodded. "Okay, but if you change your mind, I'm here." He kissed her forehead. "I know." But a week later, he did change his mind. Not because of his brother, but because of the lies. He'd heard through the grapevine that his brother was now telling people that the wedding speech had been unprovoked, that he'd shown up to support his brother and been blindsided, that his older brother had invented half the story for attention. And that was where he drew the line. Because he could live with people thinking he was bitter. He could live with people thinking he was unforgiving. But he couldn't live with people thinking he was a liar. So he did something he never thought he'd do. He compiled everything. Every text message, every screenshot, every email and voicemail and receipt that proved the timeline of the betrayal. Every piece of evidence that showed his brother had known exactly what he was doing. And he put it all into a private, password-protected web page. Not public, not a smear campaign, just a factual, chronological account of what had happened, supported by evidence, written in calm, clear language. He sent the link to a handful of people, the ones who had been lied to, the ones who deserved to know the truth. And then he let it go. He didn't post it on social media, didn't send it to his parents, didn't shove it in his brother's face. He just made sure the truth existed somewhere other than his own memory. And that was enough. The final shift happened slowly. Over the next few months, relatives started reaching out. Not all of them, but some. An uncle who said, "I'm sorry I didn't believe you at first." A cousin who said, "I had no idea it was that bad." A family friend who said, "You did the right thing." His parents, on the other hand, stayed silent. No apology, no acknowledgement, just radio silence. And he was okay with that, because he'd finally learned something that took 2 years of pain and therapy and rebuilding to understand. You can't force people to see the truth if they're not ready to. All you can do is protect your own peace, set your boundaries, and choose the people who choose you. 6 months after the wedding, he and his wife were sitting on the back porch of their apartment, the Texas sun setting in streaks of orange and pink, a cool breeze cutting through the summer heat. "Do you ever think about them?" she asked. He knew who she meant. His parents. His brother. "Sometimes," he said. "But less and less." "Do you miss them?" He thought about it. Really thought about it. "I miss the idea of them," he said finally. "I miss what I thought we were, but I don't miss the reality." She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For choosing yourself. A lot of people don't." He wrapped his arm around her and stared out at the fading light. She was right. A lot of people don't choose themselves. They choose the comfort of family, even when that family is toxic. They choose the illusion of peace over the hard work of boundaries. They stay silent because speaking up feels too risky. But he hadn't. And yeah, it had cost him. It had cost him relationships and money and a version of his family he'd thought he'd have forever. But it had also given him something back. His self-respect, his peace, his ability to look in the mirror and know he'd done the right thing. And most importantly, it had given him her, a partner who saw him, who believed him, who chose him, not because he was perfect, but because he was real. "I love you," he said. She smiled and kissed his cheek. "I love you too." And as they sat there in the quiet of their own home, on their own terms, with a future they were building together, one free from manipulation and golden children and guilt trips, he realized something. He'd survived. More than that, he'd won. Not in the petty, revenge-fueled way, not by humiliating his brother or forcing his parents to choose, but by choosing himself, by refusing to shrink, by walking away from people who didn't value him and toward a life that did. That was the real victory. And that was the life he was going to keep building, one boundary at a time. So what do you think about this story? Was he right to cut off his family, or should he have tried harder to forgive? Have you ever had to choose between your own peace and keeping the family together? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know what state you're watching from. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about your own boundaries and your own worth, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.